Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. This week on the show, we're going to discuss the many ways that developing a running habit can help you become a better hunter. And we're diving into all sorts of best practices and recommendations for, taking your running to the next level when it comes to increased training, taking it to the trails, better nutrition, taking part in races, and a whole lot more when it comes to developing physical and mental toughness. All right, welcome back to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by First Light and their Camo for Conservation initiative, which gives a portion of every sale of First Light's whitetail camo pattern. A portion of every sale of that stuff goes to support the National Deer Association, which is an organization that I am passionate about and interested in and excited about. And I'll tell you another thing I am passionate about, interested in, and excited about, and that's running. And that might not be something that you would think would show up on a whitetail hunting podcast, which usually Wired to Hunt is. But if you've been listening the last couple of years, you know that's been something that I've been diving into more myself. And, I found with this podcast, and maybe you feel differently, but I have found that when I pursue and dive more into the things that get me curious, that get me intrigued, that I really want to dive into a rabbit hole on, when I chase those things, it usually ends up leading to better content for you guys. Because if I'm not interested in it, if I'm bored with it, it's going to translate into the content. And so I am committing myself to continue to chase and explore and further, explore, I guess is the word I'm reaching for, and I already said it, but I'm going to continue down those paths when it comes to whitetail hunting, when it comes to hunting in general, when it comes to conservation, when it comes to ways to grow as a person, or in this case, with a set of training practices and habits that help you become a better hunter, that help you become a more effective human, I think, and it helps you out in a whole lot of other ways too. And that's running. That's what I found running to be for me. As you guys know, I am not the Cam Hanes type. I'm not some super uber elite athlete. I'm not that person, right? I'm long, lanky, skinny. My friends say I look like Gumby. So I'm not impressing anybody with my physical prowess or my physique. But here I am on a podcast talking to you about running and why you might want to consider adding running to your regimen, why you might want to continue doubling down on your running habit if that's something you're already doing. That's the case we're going to try to make today. And my guest is Weston Paul. Weston works for Mountain Tuff, which is a gym and online digital gym, I guess you could call it. They've got a whole suite of video courses you can participate in. They do a lot of really cool stuff. They got a podcast, all sorts of resources to help people train specifically for mountain hunting and mountain hunting related mountain related pursuits, athletic pursuits. And Weston has been someone who's reached out to me and given me some advice as I have pursued trail running in a little bit more serious of a kind of way. And so that's why he's here today, because we're going to start at the beginning talking about why you might want to consider doing these things as I just described. And then go further down the line, explore, okay, if you decide you want to run, or if you already are running, how do you do it better? How do you build a habit that actually helps you as a deer hunter, that helps you maybe train for your first out west hunt, or maybe you've been going out there chasing elk or antelope or mule deer and you want to get better at it? We're going to discuss different ways to train and to run in such a way that you can get better at these things. How can you develop more, not skill, but how can you develop the set of characteristics needed to perform at elevation? How do you climb mountains better and feel more comfortable doing it? All this kind of stuff that will help you as a hunter, whether you're deer hunting here in Michigan or elk hunting in Montana. This set of practices, this training, the mental discipline required to do this stuff consistently is going to help you. So that's what we talk about. We're going to dive in towards the end on, if you really want to get into this stuff heavy the way I'm trending right now, if you want to start running races, if you want to start doing long distance stuff, we discuss training ideas, we discuss nutrition, we discuss how to choose what kinds of distances are good to ramp up to, and a whole bunch more like that. So I enjoyed this one. It's a change of pace from what we usually discuss, but I would highly encourage you to give this one a listen and to stick with it because, whether you are a diehard, exercise nut or someone who just wants to have more success in the deer woods, there's something here for you. Also, before we get into that, I want to give you a heads up on something that is exciting and coming up here soon, and that is the 2024 edition of the Working for Wildlife Tour. We're back, a second year of the program. If you are not familiar, God, I keep hitting my microphone. Sorry, guys. If you're not familiar with this, the Working for Wildlife Tour is this thing I kicked off last year in which I'm traveling across the country, participating in different public land volunteer habitat improvement days. And the idea here is to shine a spotlight on the fact that there are these kinds of events all across the country that you can be involved in that give you a chance to do something good for wildlife, that give you a chance to give back to the public lands that we all enjoy so much, and that gives you a chance to meet other like-minded hunter and anglers. Get involved in this community, meet some new friends, meet some new hunting or fishing buddies, and do some good work at the same time. So that's what these things are all about. We did 6 of them last year. They were amazing. We made real progress. We made a real impact on these landscapes and helped all sorts of critters and had a dang good time doing it. We've got 3 of them scheduled so far for this year, and the first one is coming up soon. The first event is May 18th, 2024 in Kentucky. The second event is June 1st in Pennsylvania at the Allegheny National Forest. And the third event is August 24th up in northern Minnesota on the edge of the Boundary Waters. The first 2 of these events are in collaboration with the National Deer Association. The third event is in collaboration with Sportsmen for the Boundary Waters. All 3 events, we're going to be doing various types of habitat improvement work to, make better habitat in the ground for white-tailed deer, turkeys, birds, small mammals, all sorts of stuff like that. There's also going to be some hunter access programs, some like fence removal, a whole slew of different things that are just improving our public lands as well. So you're going to have a great time. We're going to do some good work. I would really like to see you there. I would love to meet you, shake your hand, hear your stories, sign a book, take some pictures, whatever it is. Hope to see you there. Like I mentioned, May 18th is that first one in Kentucky at the Daniel Boone National Forest. You can get the details and sign up. There's registration links by, the easiest way is maybe just Google 2024 Working for Wildlife Tour or go to the MeatEater website. That's themeateater.com. Look for the registration article there or search for it in the search bar. Anyway, you can find Working for Wildlife Tour 2024. It'll get you there. Sign up, come on out. I cannot wait. We're going to have a great time, and it's just in like a couple weeks. So that is my one plug for the day. With that out of the way, I think we should just get to my chat with Weston. He's a great guy, a wealth of information when it comes to running and trail running. He's a guy who's gone deep into this world, doing ultra races, doing this kind of top tier level stuff. And he's a terrific communicator about it too. So you're going to see he's passionate about this, and we're all going to benefit from it because of that. So with that out of the way, and without any further ado, let's get to my chat with Weston Paul. All right, with me now on the line, I am joined by Weston Paul. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I got to tell you something that's kind of funny. Ever since I first saw your name pop up on Instagram or wherever it was that I first kind of digitally bumped into you, it's thrown me off because I grew up friends with a kid named Paul Weston.
No way.
Yeah. And so every time I see it, it takes me it's like jarring because I'm like, is this the name? Like, what's the first name? What's the last name? Who is this guy again?
I should probably, he's probably got some of my mail in the past, and I get called Paul Weston constantly.
Yeah.
Most email interactions, people just see Weston Paul and they respond, "Hey, Paul."
Yep.
So, you have a legit reason to call me Paul.
Yeah, so. he was a good guy. He was a good guy. So the name seems to follow good folks. But yeah, I'm glad to be speaking to the real Paul. Well, the Weston Paul. See, I'm already struggling. But
That's
yeah,
okay.
we're talking we're talking running today, and I want to publicly thank you for something that privately you did, which is reach out to me when you saw that I was kind of diving deeper into the trail running world, and just kind of reached out of the blue, offering some advice and some thoughts and stuff. So thank you for that. I
You're
really do
very
appreciate it.
welcome. I was like, anytime I see that somebody asking that question, what advice do you have? I'm like, oh, I've got advice because there's these things that runners don't talk about, or it comes up in conversation like years after
Right.
you start running. So tips and tricks, and I love sharing those. I geek out on it for sure.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, I'm eating it all up right now, just like taking in a fire hose of information as I've
Yeah.
kind of taken this next step myself. But I'm curious, to kick it off, how did this all start for you? Like, how did running become a part of your life?
This this goes way back to my childhood, and it probably has roots in when my sister and I would get in trouble. My parents would have us run around the house as punishment, so we had to make laps around the house. But that didn't last very long for me because I got asthma at a pretty early age, and so I got
Yikes.
out of having to run around the house, and I had an inhaler. And so all growing up, not all growing up, but definitely into my high school days, I mean, I got out of running all the time because I had such bad asthma. And actually, there's the president's physical fitness test
Yep.
that used to go on, and I could never get the blue badge. I always got the red one, and the reason being is because I couldn't run.
Oh
So I've got
man.
to watch everybody run and do their thing, but I always sat out, and running for me was something I never participated in until college. And when I went to college in Montana, I grew up in South Dakota. I went to college in Montana. It was something about maybe the change in geography that we didn't have as much pollen in the air, or that I finally grew because I didn't grow for a long time. And I grew out of asthma in college,
Hmm.
actually. And so I would run for dryland training. I was a ski racer. And so I would run in college for dryland training. And it was amazing because I was always the one standing on the sidelines. And my asthma went away. I didn't need an inhaler anymore. But I didn't really I didn't like gravitate towards running as something that I would want to do as a pastime. I just did it for training, and it
Yep.
was nice to participate in it because it does give you the benefit even as a downhill racer. And then moving up to Bozeman, my wife and a group of her friends, they ran a whole bunch. They ran these Ragnar races, and they were just having a great time together. And I would watch that, and they would train and do all those things. And they had such a fun time that it intrigued me a bit. And I also had a hunting buddy who we did a trip one time, and we were walking, and I just walk all day. Like I just always I'm just curious. So I will walk all day. Probably why I'm not as successful as a hunter as I should be. But but this is a long answer to your question. But this is how I got into running. My buddy told me at the end of that trip, he said, you should do the Bridger Ridge run. He's like, you could do the Bridger Ridge run. And he had just observed me walking, and over the course of, probably 8, maybe 9 days, something like that on that trip. And I just kept walking and walking and walking, and we covered a lot of ground, a lot of miles. And at the end of that, he said, you should do the Bridger Ridge run. Well, my wife's group of friends, they were doing a trail race, and because they were coming out of these Ragnar like road races. And I mentioned that to them. They said, well, come on a training run with us. We're doing this local race that happens before the Bridger Ridge run. So off the couch, I went on a training run with them, and I ran I think we did 17 miles that day. And like we jogged. No, trail running, people will call it trail running, but it's a lot of walking. It's
Yeah.
it's a hidden secret, and it is a lot of walking, which I can do. And so I ran 17 miles with them. I signed up for that first race. Um, it's a 38K. So yeah, it's not a marathon, but it's a mountain race. And I I did that. I went and did the race. Like I did one training run and then went and did the race, and it was so incredible. The people, the people that support the race, the aid stations, the competitors, the finish line, all of it, I was hooked like immediately. That one race just totally hooked me. And I'd also applied to be in the Bridger Ridge Run. And so following that race was like I think 4th of July. And then the beginning of August, I did the Bridger Ridge Run. So a combination of good influence around me and the running culture and the positivity that exists in it. And then my hunting buddy just telling me, yeah, you should do this because of his observation of me walking so much and scaring so many elk. So.
Man, that's so interesting though, because that's like my thing. Like the only thing I excel at physically is I can hike forever. Like all my buddies just know, like I'm a mountain guy. I'll just hike and hike and hike and hike, and I hike longer and faster. And I don't stop. And that I finally found like my one thing. I was not the star of the basketball team, the football team, baseball team, anything. I was like a hustle player who'd kind of he'd be in the team, but on the bench. But I finally found like a thing that seems to naturally suit me, which is just going for a long ways at a steady pace. And kind of the same deal. My buddy's like, man, you could probably do these endurance races. And I always thought, God, no way. But I'm kind of realizing like maybe it fits my personality or something. Because what you're saying is so true with my experience. I got to ask you about the Bridger Run, but I'll wait. Because I've seen videos about that and been intrigued, and it looks incredible, and I want to do it someday. But I want to, before we lose anyone who's thinking like, geez, I'm just a whitetail hunter who, hikes in maybe a mile at the most, and there's some like mobile deer hunters. So like the athletic spear end of the whitetail crowd is like going to be hiking in with maybe like 20 pounds on your back and going in a mile and a half, sneaking in. Like that's a challenging whitetail hunt. So it's very different than like a challenging elk hunt. But still, that person might be listening to this and be curious. Like, man, I know I could probably do some stuff to make that easier, to make myself more efficient at that, to be able to do that kind of stuff for 10 days straight. And that kind of person might be wondering, like, why should I care about running? Why should running be a thing I add to my regimen or my routine? If you were going to, like, let's say we're at a bar and you happen to stumble into like a Midwestern bar with a bunch of guys or girls who like to hunt whitetail deer, but are pretty serious about it.
Yep.
And we're sitting there at the table, eating burgers, drinking a beer, and you have to make the case to them, like, why they should think about running a little bit more seriously or make it into a habit or something like that. What's the case you would make? Like, how would you try to convince someone at that table that this is a conversation they want to dive into more?
Absolutely. The case I would make to them is, as a whitetail hunter, the mental fortitude that it takes to be a successful whitetail hunter is the same mental fortitude that it takes to be a trail runner or a road runner. And they have it. Yeah. That's the case that I would make. I was like, they have it because they do the sits, they put in the work, they look forward to it so much. And they're putting all that effort into it. They want to do it for a long time. I'm guessing I would ask them, if you do you want to do this for a long time? And so I would back up the mental fortitude and saying, like, you have this, you have what it takes with, let's do this for a long time. And I do want to drink beers and I want to have cheeseburgers at the bar because I love that. Yep. So for my cardiovascular health, I'll do this to supplement then what I look forward to in that hunting season. And for me, I know, like, I'm a whitetail hunter to a certain extent. Like, I got into it. My father-in-law, like, my wife's from Michigan, so my father-in-law got me into it, and I just know the mental fortitude that it takes to do those sits and to be patient. And so I know that that's what we have in common as a runner and a whitetail hunter. And not that running's for everybody, because sometimes people, you may not be able to run, but rucking or just walking, that cardiovascular health, the benefit to that is the big thing for me. I'm probably to a fault. I would like to do this for a long time, and hopefully this is helping that. So my cardiovascular health would be what I would back it up with. Yeah.
So let's assume that I know nothing, because in many ways I don't.
Yeah.
How is improving my cardiovascular health gonna help me be a more effective hunter? Like, how
Yeah.
is that going to translate into my time of field or getting to where I hunt or anything else as
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of guy or girl?
The cardiovascular health and being able to maintain a pace without getting worked up. When I think of that, I think of going in with all of my warm clothes on to do a morning sit, and like how sweaty you get,
Yeah, exactly.
right? People are, like peeling layers off, and it's cold. And if you get sweaty, guess what? You can't sit up there as long
Yeah, you're
because you're stuck
sweaty.
sweaty
Yeah.
and you're cold. And the style of training that running is oftentimes a low and slow training. You go through the zones. Go like zone 1 training, zone 2 training. It's when your heart rate starts going up and up. Zone 3, zone 4, and then we joke around about the other zones that are out there. But zones 1 and 2, the low and slow, the walking, that really that emphasis on just a jog are the most beneficial, and those are the ones in my experience. And two, I was like, I'm not an exercise physiologist or a trainer or anything like that, but those are the zones that help you keep it under control so you don't get worked up and you're not sweating. And so if you can maintain even a slow, steady pace and you're not getting overly sweaty, that's a good thing as a hunter. When it comes to being able to calm down, there is the benefit also of like that maybe target panic, that those sort of things, but
Yeah.
your heart plays into that. So the healthier your heart is, the better your shot theoretically is going to be, so that when it does spike, it comes back down. That heart rate, we don't want it to spike too much and just stay there. We want it to come back down and calm down so we can execute that shot. And so that's like the buck fever thing, but running does play into that as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, it seems like I've long known and thought that the better, like we don't all need to be Cameron Haynes. Cameron is just kind of like that person who everyone that's like a, what's the word, like the archetype of like,
Aspirational.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as a whitetail guy or girl, we don't all need to go that far. But I've always thought, man, the better physical fitness that you can be, the fewer roadblocks you're going to have, the fewer speed bumps you're going to have along the route to doing the very best you could. There's so many things outside of your control as a hunter, even as a whitetail hunter. There's so many different variables that are all the way out of your control. Every little thing that I can tweak in my favor, everything that I do have some agency over, I've always thought, man, you should try to maximize that as much as you can, because 90% of it still is up to Mother Nature and what those critters are doing out there and random chance. And there's just so many times where physical obstacles can keep you from doing the right thing. If you are hiking along and you really should get to that back valley at the back of the chunk of public land, but you're huffing and puffing and exhausted, you're more likely to say, screw it, I'm just going to sit here and not, execute the plan the way you wanted to. Or maybe vice versa, like you're done hunting for the day and the right thing to do is to take the long way around so that you avoid the evening food source where all the deer are now that it's after dark. But after the hunt, you're tired. You had the long hike in that, earlier that day, and you're thinking, gosh, I don't want to walk 2 miles to get out the back way. I'm just going to walk straight to the road. Who cares? I'll spook a bunch of deer, but I'm too darn tired. Like, I don't want to be that person. I want to be the person that says, like, 2 miles, it's the right thing to do. No big deal. I've trained for this. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the right thing. There's
Yeah,
so many
the wind's a
examples like
different
that.
direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have that choice. And if your physical state is interfering with that, you can change it. And that's one thing. You can buy like all the gear, you can have all the stuff, you can do all that. But bottom line, like your body, what you put in is what you get out. So that input, as a hunter, and too, it's so true. It's not for everybody. Running is not for everybody, but I'd encourage everyone always to just be active. Go on a walk, and yes, Cam Hanes is running all kinds of stuff, but shoot, a walk with a heavy pack on your backpack, the equivalent weight of your tree stand, and going and getting outside and the benefits of that. Plus, uh, in the Midwest, there's so much beauty. Everything's greening up,
Yeah.
and like you're in the deer woods oftentimes. Like you
Yeah.
can get out there and you can see it, and you can learn so much by running. Just gives you the opportunity to learn so much of, hey, if you got a trail system, you're hunting public land, gosh, you can pick up on a lot of patterns and that sort of stuff too. Plus you get to be out in that beautiful environment. I do know, like running in, say, Wisconsin or something like that, I was like, the deer flies would always get me.
Yeah.
So my mom's cousin, she has these little sticky things that she puts on the back of her hat because she runs it like every day. She's in Wisconsin and she runs every day. And so when I'd be out there visiting them, I'd get one of those little sticky patches and those deer flies would stick to it because I run too slow.
That's amazing.
Anyway.
But speaking of like gear, other than sticky pads for your hat, one of the nice things about choosing running as one of your main training methods is like it's so accessible. You don't need to pay for a gym membership right out the gate. You don't need to buy a bunch of heavy equipment. You don't need to buy any machines. I mean, if you just want to get started, you just need a pair of shoes that are half decent and you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just so few barriers to entry. And it seems like, there's a million different ways you can go when it comes to physical training for a pursuit like hunting. There's many different levels of intensity you can take it. But am I right in thinking, like, at least for your standard whitetail hunter who wants to establish a better base of fitness so that they're not huffing and puffing when going to the stand or when hiking in or when climbing trees or anything like that, like, it seems like cardio stuff that running is going to help you with, that's like checkbox number one that you need to hit. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it definitely that your ability to your body's ability for your muscles to take in oxygen so that you can utilize that oxygen, then any sort of cardiovascular fitness, running, riding a bike, an elliptical, like those sort of machines that just get your heart rate up. And your heart rate doesn't have to go that high. It's a conversation pace, honestly. If you can carry on a conversation with somebody, while you're doing that exercise, that's the pace that you want to go at. That is actually the one that gives you the most benefit. I'll still put a disclaimer that I'm not an exercise physiologist or anything like that, but having a conversation and being able to maintain that effort gives you your body's ability to increase red blood cell count so that you can take in more oxygen so that you can adequately use that oxygen then and it's really quite easy. So running is that, like, go and it's a jog and it's slow and that's okay. There's training blocks for us as runners when we get like really geek out on it and we want to go for it. In the endurance space, there's zone 2 training, and you don't want to go above that. So you spend all of your time running low and slow because in the long run, it pays off the most. And it's kind of like with everything, like doing it slow is doing it right. Doing it slow is, doing it fast.
Right.
Those sort of sayings that you've heard people say it, for a long time, regardless of where you are, those types of sayings, that's the benefit too of that cardiovascular training, which, yeah, a pair of shoes that doesn't, hurt your feet, that are comfortable when you put them on, and you can go get out in the morning or the afternoon or the evening and just see like this beautiful creation that we get to be, present in. And then you get to see it outside of hunting season too, which is awesome. You get to watch those seasons change.
Man, so true.
Yeah.
So if someone's at the beginning stages of this and they're like, hey, you know what? I've ran off and on, or I used to play sports in college and I've kind of drifted away. Life gets busy, work gets busy. If you got kids, whatever it is, and you've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit, what would your advice be for someone who wants to pick this up, try to develop some kind of running routine or habit, to get the kind of benefits we're talking about, what do we need to do to enjoy this kind of benefit? Do I need to run 50 miles a week, or can I get away with less? Like, what's that actually
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah. No, don't run 50 miles a week. Definitely not off the couch. You'll be a crazy person if you do that, and
Yeah.
you'll have ailments, or you'll find out I can do that, and then you'll go win races
Yeah.
probably. But starting small is always so important. And when it comes to, I'll just say, like, getting up in the morning, for instance, and going for a 30-minute walk. Heck, go for a 15-minute walk. And if you can jog for 15 minutes, and come home. Like, my limit that I set on my phone for Instagram each day is 30 minutes, and I hit that in no time.
Yeah,
And
it's
I was
too
like,
easy to
oh,
hit.
I could have got a run in,
Yeah.
and I could have gone a few miles, actually, at a 10-minute mile pace. And so you could go a couple miles, you could go a few miles, but just starting and creating that habit so that you look forward to, say, getting up in the morning, hearing the birds chirp because it's spring and it's wonderful out, and just getting out the door and turning around and coming back, and then getting up the next morning and doing it again, or getting up every other morning and doing it. But it takes, typically 3 weeks to a month to create a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And so for an individual to, like, look forward to doing that, you don't have to get on a training plan and just go for it big and start upping your mileage. Just look forward to it, I would say, and go set a goal for yourself, and set a small goal, and then get the confidence out of reaching that goal, because it doesn't matter the miles. Like, I ran a marathon a day. Bob Cam Hanes would even say it. Nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he
Keep
says that.
hammering.
It's funny, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, but really, like, what matters is that you're doing that for yourself and you're getting out there. And I mean, it's nice to have a buddy, an accountability partner as well. So if you have somebody that would maybe hold you accountable, my wife, like, she has a coworker who's a workout buddy, and they both work out at different times of the day. But her coworker texts her every morning that she does her workout and says, "I did it." And the same could go for, if it's your spouse or your kid or a friend, somebody out there would help hold you accountable, and then you could encourage them to go and do that as well, which is a nice way to, like, yeah, I want to wake up, I want to do this. The other piece for me is, I love popping in a podcast. I'm going to listen to your podcast anyway. So why don't I move while I listen to your podcast?
Yeah.
It's a great combo. And, then listen to a book, listen to another podcast that you haven't heard of, listen to music, and kind of enjoy that as well, because it is time. Like, you're going to spend that time anyway. So just be active while you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's a book that I love called Atomic Habits,
Mm-hmm.
by James Clear. I've talked about it, listeners will know I talk about a decent bit, but the things you're talking about are right in line with, like, his approach, attach these, like, positive associations to the thing. So make it easy to get started, make it fun, make it something that you want to continue doing, because you've got all these other positive things attached to it. And then, after a month, all of a sudden you've done it for a month now, and it's been fun. And then the thing itself, you all of a sudden start realizing, hey, I'm enjoying this for the
Yeah.
sake of it. And then it continues, and it's a perpetual cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem, like anything fitness related, and I think running included, it comes down to consistency, right?
Yeah.
Like, a couple big runs is great, but a lot of medium or short runs over a long period of time, that's where you start seeing gains and improvement, is when that becomes a
Mm-hmm.
consistent thing that you can keep doing and keep doing. And then improvements start racking up.
Yeah, big time. And then you watch those, and you truly look forward to, once that's a habit, it's something that you look forward to doing, that you don't want to miss out on. And I'll say, with running, like, a lot of us, we're out west, we're in Montana and Midwest. We have our seasons. And so it's not like you got to run through the winter. Like, enjoy your winter. And when spring comes around, and, like, go and run, because too much of one thing is always, like, it's always going to bite you.
Sure.
Too much of one thing, of just running all the time, I mean, it comes around more and like I'm so obsessive about this that other parts of my life are falling apart. So running's a problem.
Yeah.
But but you don't have to run year round. Like it's something that you can pick up. You can turn into training for hunting season. I was like, there's a lot of people now that they're getting ready for the turkey woods.
Yeah.
And they're getting into a fitness routine to get ready for turkey season, which who would have thought like somebody would actually do that? But they know because they're on their feet a bit more, they're walking, they're covering ground, and they want to be able to, not be overly sweaty. They want to be able to execute a shot as well. And so we see that in the turkey hunter population that they're actually people out there that are going, hey, I want to lose some weight because I don't want to be lugging this around. And I love hunting turkeys, which is amazing.
Yeah. So when it comes to like making it fun,
Yeah.
Fun enough that you keep wanting to do it and that you start seeing these things. I've ran on the road for, I don't know, at least a decade, 15 years. I out of college, I was kind of a bum for the first 5 years of full-time work. Just like I was very focused on work and just did not, I guess I take that back. I guess I've been running ever since college, just off and on. I'll have periods where I'm doing it and I know I need to do it, and then I kind of fall off the bandwagon, and then I get back on it, and it's been off and on. And I think it's always been one of those things that for me was like, it felt like an obligation. Like I knew I should do it. I felt good after I did it, but the actual on the ground time I wasn't always enjoying until I started leaving the road and going to trails. And since I kind of somehow, I don't know how this surprises me because I love hiking. That's been like one of my favorite things to do is go hike. So for some reason, I'm so dumb that I didn't realize that going a little bit faster on a trail would also be fun. So since I moved my running from the road to the trail, my excitement about it and like my actual enjoyment in the moment has gone up by like 10x just because I'm not worried about cars. I'm not worried about, just staring at the road or houses. I can actually immerse myself in nature, and you're taking in the trees and the scenes and the ups and downs, and you're crossing streams and you're smelling everything around you. I'm seeing deer and turkeys, and all of a sudden it's, as you mentioned, it's like it is a natural world immersion kind of thing and a physical benefit that you're enjoying all at the same time. So for people that are taking that jump, shifting from like road running or running at the track or running on the treadmill, and now they want to take it to the trails, and they're maybe, hillier, more elevation, single track stuff, mixed terrain. This year was when I finally got more serious about that side of things. And so I've been trying to like, one of the first things I started thinking about when I realized I was going to be doing more of this was like, am I going to blow up my ankles? Like, am I going to be tripping and falling all the time? Like, there's all these little things that I never thought about when running that all of a sudden I am. What in your opinion are the most important things that a new trail runner needs to be thinking about that's different than just taking a jog around the neighborhood?
Yeah. Road running is its own version of difficult because of the beating that your body takes running on pavement. So shoes are like a big help there, just a good pair of shoes on the roads. But when you switch over to trails, you are working on uneven terrain. So your shoes are important there as well. More grip. So you get a trail running shoe, something that's comfortable, but there isn't like a lot of ankle support there in those shoes. They're a pair of running shoes. So don't expect them to be a pair of hunting boots, but even a pair of hunting boots, you don't want to have weak ankles. So trail running and that consistency is going to naturally strengthen your joints. It's going to strengthen your ankles over time. You're going to get stronger. That's why starting small is so important, because you want to give yourself a base, you want to give yourself a foundation, and you want to build on that. And a strength regiment for a trail runner is really crucial, along with mobility, because those sort of ailments will manifest themselves. My case in point is that trail run that I did, that very first one that I ever signed up for. I really couldn't walk after that. Like I was so stoved up, and I learned about these things that we have in our bodies called our IT bands, iliotibial band. Yeah. That runs like it's very, very long. It runs from like your back all the way down to your ankles. And I had excruciating pain after that. So it's like too much too fast. And then I learned all about how important stretching was and how you can combat these things by stretching. And then that strength portion is your durability. So your muscles, they're here to protect your joints. And so if you have strong muscles, then they are going to do their job in protecting your joints. And that's really, really valuable as a trail runner too. So, and it doesn't have to be a crazy, you don't have to buy a whole bunch of equipment, all that sort of stuff to have a strength regimen. Lunges are awesome. Squat jumps are fantastic. Anybody can do core. So we can do planks and sit-ups at any time. Like we're just going back to, high school days of, what we were doing when we were running. And that's simple. Those simple fundamentals really do work quite well. And if you do have a backpack, putting weight on your back is really beneficial as well. You're not going to want to run a long distance with that weight in your pack, certainly if you're starting out, but it does help condition your body and get it ready for and adapt to those trail conditions.
Yeah. Well, you didn't do it yourself, so I'll do it for you. I got to plug what you guys have got over at Mountain Tuff because, I was able to use I think it was the Mountain Foundations course over the last couple months leading into this most recent race I just did. And, it was, I'm not a guy that loves the gym. I like being outside doing stuff. And so I've never been a person that's like all about the machines and stuff. So body weight has been usually the thing that I found like fit me most. And your body weight foundations course has been really good. Like I've enjoyed it. I've felt, it helps out there. The mobility, the core stuff. I just did this, I did a half marathon trail race last weekend and just felt like a breeze, even compared to the last couple I did, in which I thought I trained a lot. Just a different level. And I don't know all the things I can attribute that to, but I have to believe that becoming more well-rounded has helped with that. And so highly recommend that.
That's it. It's super cool. And just that you notice that there's a difference. And yes, it's more trail time. Ultimately, you're spending more time on the trail, so you're going to feel better. But the strength component in how you recover, that's really big for me. Like I know when, as I was running and my body was starting to break down, because that does happen with runners. Now most coaches will recommend a strength routine. They want their runners to do some sort of strength, not just run all the time. So that image that you have in your mind of somebody that's rail thin and really fast, like, yes, those people are out there, but you're even seeing that change too, because the strength programs that are out there are getting better and better. And so for like a body weight foundation program, it's really simple. It doesn't require any gear. It's just different movements that you do on a cadence, and you've created that habit. So you roll it into your training, you roll it into your running, and then you walk away from that race going, gosh, I'm not so devastated. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Bottom line, it was really fun. And I'm going to look forward to the next one. And I know that this is going to manifest itself in other areas positively for me.
Yeah. Man, it is it's for lack of a better term, just a really good feeling when you're out doing an event like that. And I like I said, I've never been an elite athlete. I'm not an elite athlete, but I'm going by so many people that seem like they're miserable and struggling. And I'm just feeling great. And just going along the whole thing, I just kept thinking to myself, like, man, like, this is why you trained. Like this feeling right here, like 95% of everyone you're going by just seems like they're in hell. And I am enjoying myself flying up the hills, like not struggling. I'm just going at my easy, good pace and kind of crushing it. And I'm not the guy that crushes sports usually, but this like I can now. I can do that. And that was like very encouraging to see, like you put in the work, it pays off.
Yeah, big time. And yeah, that is testament to what you're doing and how curious you are about it as well. But I like the big thing for you as you're going through this and anyone else is like, these are enjoyable experiences that you wouldn't do otherwise. They just happen to have the benefit in the hunting realm too. So I always have that in the back of my mind. It's like, as I go into this, yes, maybe I won't have as much adipose tissue on my body when I go into winter, so I'm going to be a little bit more cold. But you could even do something for that. You could enjoy the running season and then be okay with consuming maybe some of those fats and having a little bit of insulation. One of my good running buddies always said that as we were going into winter. He's like, bears hibernate and we are mammals. And he would just remind me of that, because sometimes runners can get really obsessive about these crazy things. And that's when it's too much. That's when it's taking over your life and it's destructive. But by and large, we're made to move. And moving through the terrain, our local topography, regardless of where you are, it's really cool. Whenever I go to a city, I love to go try to take a run and check out that city, early in the morning. Something that is, I'm way out of my element, right? Like, I love running on trails, but to go and see that wherever you are, it's its own sort of beautiful, for sure. And I just know the Midwest and the trails systems that are out there. A long time ago, I met some guys from, they were outside DC and Virginia, and they were trail runners. And I've talked to them enough that I was like, I have to go see your guys' country. They're like, come and do a trail race. And so I found one, just look up online. There's trail races all over the place. And I went and did one outside of DC, and we ran, along the Potomac, and there's all the history and everything there. And I would never see this otherwise. And I would never see this quickly. Granted, I'm not moving fast because I'm not an elite athlete whatsoever. I just enjoy being out there and, high-fiving people, seeing the different culture that exists in the running community, because it's so positive. Like, you're inundated with positivity, and there's few places in this world where you get that much positivity that quickly.
True. Yeah. And it's funny, we're talking races now, and races kind of, for me, began as a thing to maintain my habit, like to maintain the practice. So like, I originally signed up for my first race because, as I alluded at the beginning, like I've been running off and on forever, but I never stuck with it consistently. I'd always kind of fall off in the fall, and then that would continue through the winter. And then like spring would come around and I'd pick it up a little bit, but then I'd go on, vacation, and then it's just like that. And I finally realized, like, I need a stick. Like, I need, the carrot and the stick method, right? I need a stick like hanging over me in the future that's going to be looming. And if I don't run, if I do not train, I'm going to have my tail whooped by this race in 6 months or something. So that's why I originally signed up for my first race, was just to have that incentive, to have that thing coming down the line that's going to keep me honest, it's going to keep me going. And then I did it, and then all of a sudden, like, it's slowly molded into something that I'm not just doing because it's going to force me to train, but now it's becoming something I'm actually enjoying. But there's a lot of people that I think are having that same discovery now. Like, this is a very unscientific method of analysis, but of like all the things that I post about on social media, my audience is like hunting and fishing and conservation. Like, that's the kind of stuff I usually write about or post about. But when I throw in running stuff now, I probably have more engagement and questions and interest about running than I do about any of those things. Like, it blows up. So there's a lot of latent interest within the outdoor community about getting into this stuff. And I'm seeing more and more people signing up for trail runs, signing up for ultra runs, marathons, half marathons. Like, lots and lots of people, I think, are kind of discovering this now. And I don't know what that's about exactly. But it definitely seems like there is a growing movement of people realizing, like, man, this is a thing that's worth my time. Are you seeing that? Is that just am I just noticing it because I'm getting into it myself, or is there that kind of thing going on at a large scale?
Definitely we definitely notice it at Mountain Tuff. It's incredible when people do start creating a habit and changing, their fitness routine and getting into something. For us, we see a lot of them start Mountain Tuff, and then naturally they get to a point where they're like, I want to sign up for a trail race. Can you help me with the plan? And we don't have any like running specific plans, but we do have great programs to help with the strength piece. And then there's running incorporated into them. And I tell everybody, I'm like, go sign up for it. You can absolutely do this. So there's more interest there. It is a timing thing, hunting and it's all of its popularity and having that date or deadline out there of hunting seasons coming, whatever season you're looking forward to, like it's always like you're always preparing for it. And so us as individuals, as hunters, I think that putting something on the agenda and having something else to look forward to in that way, shape, or form, and fitness is just tying into that now. So that's I think a lot of it is, you're right. You need that carrot dangled in front of you. Hunting season is always that, but it comes around once a year, right? So it takes a long time to get to it. So having another one of those milestones is really valuable. And I think the accessibility, like regardless of where you are, there's races going on, there's local races. And so it's not the running's going to beat you up and ruin your joints and all of that. Is like, there's data out there to prove otherwise for sure. And the longevity piece, I think, plays into us as hunters when we look at conservation and what we're doing. I just always go back to, I want to be able to do this for as long as possible. I want to be able to enjoy this with my family and my friends. And I want to be able to set this, say it's the public lands and the opportunity that we have out there. I'm like, well, let's just do this for a longer period of time. So running and cardiovascular health, hopefully, like things happen, certainly. I could keel over tomorrow from a heart attack, but I'm going to do my part not to, so that I can continue to do what I love for as long as possible. And I don't care to live forever, but I always admire those individuals that are older and that are still really, really active.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they tend to be those ones. I met a guy at a tactical officers deal that I was at here a couple days ago up in Helena, and his name was Ron, and he was 72, and he worked on Fort Harrison. And he was, just a really one of those cool guys. It's his retirement gig and whatnot. And he's like, oh yeah, I don't need a fitness app. I was like, yeah, doesn't look like you do. And he's like, no, I walk every day. Yep. I'm like, really? How much do you walk every day? He's like 6 to 10 miles every day. I went, holy smokes, man, that's the stuff I geek out on, because those type of individuals. And then he proceeded to show me. He was like, yeah, I track it all and I do all these things. And I'm like, that's so cool. So in my heart, I'm like, I know that there's a Midwest guy out there. It's like a traditional bow hunter that's running these races that nobody knows about. And I'm like, that's the guy that I want to meet. Yeah. I want to meet, and I want to hear stories from that individual. Because I know that they're out there, and they're out west, and they're in our trail running community and stuff too. So there are those individuals. But when it comes to whitetail hunting, I was like, I know that'd be a cool interview for me to do. I was like, I want to find that. So maybe there's somebody out there. Your listeners will definitely know somebody that's out there that's doing trail races and is hunting well into their 70s and 80s. I'm sure.
I bet there are. Well, it was so funny. Like, even at that race I was at last weekend, I had 4 or 5 different people come up to me that recognized me from my work, like just in like a very short little window when I got to the finish line. So like that is like a very small sample size of telling you like how many of our kind of people are doing this stuff already. To have that many folks is telling. So
it's so cool.
So on this race thing, I have loved it. I'm getting more and more into it, as we talked about. One of the things I've thought about is like, what's the progression of distance? Like, I'm the type who, when I get into something, I go hard and I go deep. And I've already been reading and thinking about like 100-mile races and that kind of crazy stuff. Yeah. But what is like a safe or responsible or smart progression of distance? So I've done half marathons so far. I'm signed up for I'm doing a 30K this summer. But then I'm thinking, okay, so I did a 30K like serious trail run this summer. The way these races are broken, it's not like you can do a 30K and then you can do a 34K and then you can do a 38K. It's like 30K or 50K. Uh, or do you want to go 50 miles or 100 miles? There's these big jumps. Um,
Yeah.
so how, like, what should I be thinking on that? Like, could I do a 50K next year? Is that insane? Should I do 30Ks for a couple years? Should I go from a 30 to a full marathon? Like, how do you think about
Mhm.
that kind of thing?
Well, trail running it's its own unique beast, and like a marathon is its own beast too, because you're running all out that fast, or trying to run that fast on pavement for 26 miles, right? So it's its own form of difficult. Trail races and the distance, this is one of those things for me, and I'll speak from my experience, and then too, like my experience is based on, my community and the people that are around me, and I ask them these questions. I have asked them these questions for forever. So when it comes to a 30K, typically you're going to run a 30K a little bit faster. Like you're going to push yourself in a 30K
Yep.
because subconsciously you know that it's not that far. So if you can come to terms with running the 30K, then naturally you're starting to look at other races out there, and it's not crazy to want to run a 50K, because that's the next one. And you're right, like that's like the next offering that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
A 50K, you're not going to run all out as fast as you run in a 30K. You're going to pace yourself. Like that's the beauty of training, and that's where I'll go back to, like, right away pitching this to some guys that are drinking beers and having burgers in the bar. It's like, you have that mental fortitude. I know, because you're a hunter. Like I know you have it. And if you want to, you could go do a 50K, guaranteed. And a 50K is a fun distance because it is a little bit further and you get a little bit more time to experience everything out there. Your body will go through a few other things that you wouldn't go through in a 30K, because now we're talking calories, we're talking the nutrition that you need, more of the hydration. So you can't wing it necessarily in a 50K. From there, then we go up to a 50 miler, which is a little different training style. And then you'll see 100Ks. So the 100K distance is really fun because your average pace is about the time you're going to finish in, because it's essentially 60 miles. So it's this funny race that you just keep an eye on your average pace, and that's how long it's going to take you to finish, which is incredibly eye-opening as a hunter of how much time it takes to get from point A to point B while you're, say, walking.
Can you explain that? So you're saying that if your average pace is like 20 minutes a mile, you're going to finish in 20 hours. Is that right?
20 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially. I'm like the 100K for me I was just like, I can't believe this. And then the further you get in the race, the slower you're going, and the sooner you want to finish, but it just doesn't happen because your average is your average.
Right.
The math doesn't lie when it comes down to it. And then you go up from there. And there's people are going so many crazy distances, but we can. And if you're inclined to do it, you should experience it. I will put it that with the caveat of, don't let it take over your life. Don't let it, like, take away so much from your time with your family and all that kind of stuff, because that's not worth it. But if you do want to go for it, I was like, we are totally capable. The crazy thing for me as a Western hunter is when I realized that an elk needs to lay down in rifle season, an elk needs to lay down and recover. Should you bump one, you can just walk and you'll catch up to them. Like it'll take you a little while, and it's going to be through some steep, nasty terrain, but you will catch up to them because they have to recover. And us as humans, we are able to continue walking and recovering while we're doing that. So we don't have to, like, sit down and rest necessarily. Now, if our cardiovascular health isn't that great, we do have to sit down and rest. But us as a hunter, I was like, that's an eye-opening thing. Whitetails are totally different. I'm not saying you're going to walk down a whitetail, because you do not want to do that. They'll be gone. They're that's the beauty of whitetail hunting. But just knowing that, even on that topic, you can blood trail one for as long as you need to blood trail it for.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not giving up. So
And actually, there are guys out specifically at the Northeast. They'll track them in the snow. They'll walk them
Yeah.
down in the snow out there.
Oh,
So it is a thing in certain regions.
yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
this would be very good for that.
And they drag
Um,
them out
yeah,
too.
yeah,
That's like the tradition,
it's a
to
lot.
drag them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a heck of an endeavor.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so you mentioned something that has been one of my struggles, which was time away from family, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm already gone a lot for work, and I'm unique compared to some people in that like I travel a lot for work, but I'm already going to be gone, 6, 7, 8 weeks a year traveling for work, and then just daily work seems to take a lot, and then I've got other hobbies too, like I'm really into fishing and I've got all that kind of stuff. So I've always felt like I felt bad adding another time suck into the world. And so when I was training for like doing these first races, I was doing it early in the morning and still would feel like, on the weekends I got to do like 2 hours or so away to do a run, and that was sucking into a Saturday or Sunday morning with the family. And when I was thinking
Mhm.
about jumping from half marathon to marathon, one of the first things I thought about was like, gosh, how much more training time will it be? Do I need to be, does that mean every Sunday I'm gone 5 hours or something, or 4 hours? Do I really want to do that and be gone longer? Um, what kind of advice do you have for someone who's in a similar situation in which like they want to do something longer? They want to do a
Yeah.
marathon or a 30K or a 50K or a 100 miler or whatever the thing is, but they're trying to figure out like, how do I balance this with family and other obligations? Do I need to run for 4 hours every single day, or is it not that much?
I I will speak from my experience here as well, because as I really fell in love with running and then went over the top on signing up for all the races, um, I I had I had to start it off on my wife. We had our first kid, and there was a period of time in there which was awesome once he was sleeping through the night, and I could go and run,
Yeah.
and it was just my time. Like I got out, I did that, I was able to come back, and then we had a second, and then I was quite obsessive about the time on my feet, and but it was really really cute. I'd just get up earlier and I'd get back home on, say, a Saturday morning. They'd be waking up, make pancakes, do all that stuff, and they'd say, Daddy, how was your run? And I just loved that,
Yeah.
because I know that that's making an impact on them and they're seeing that.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't gone all day long, but I was making it back in time. And that's a period of time for my life that I was like, it was really evident to me that I was making a memory for them that was impactful. And it was active. It was fitness focused, but they would ask me about how my run was. And then they would go to these races, and my wife would be at the finish line with the boys, and they'd just get to cheer me on. And next thing you know, they'd come up the trail and they'd run to the finish line with me. And those sort of memories are
Yeah.
so impactful for both of my boys, me and my wife as well, of just setting that example of, you can go and do these hard things. I did them. I was the example. I'm at this point in life where I'm older and I'm finding that I love this. So you're just along for the ride, but they just would geek out on it. And it just, for me as a dad, that's the most special thing. And what a carrot in front of you when your kids are there and they're watching
Sure.
you. They're seeing all of that. So that comes back. It's not that my kids are runners or anything, but they don't like mine. Like even at 11K with my older boy, when he was 9, he was like, I kind of want to do that. And I was like, let's sign up and do it. Like, we got a little hydration pack and all
That's
that. So
great.
setting that example is the one piece. But yes, then when you train further distances, you're going to want naturally spend more time on your feet. And for me, that's where I supplemented in more of a strength program and less time on my feet, because I was seeing it where it was such a draw. When you train for 100 miler, you do have to run quite a bit. But where I saw my balance come into play was adding more of the strength in. So I'm getting that durability. I'm building some muscle to protect everything. And yeah, time on my feet might not make me the faster runner out there, but I'm dang sure very, very durable, and I can make it that distance. And so those are the sort of things where I just rolled in more of a strength routine. It doesn't take a whole bunch. It doesn't take a whole bunch of gym equipment, kettlebell, dumbbell, cooler to step up on. And you can add in that 1 hour, say even 40-minute training block of strength that will pay dividends when you run. And so for me, with a busy life and all of that, that's where I was like, I just started blending the strength. And it was really cool too, because Dustin, who he started Mountain Tuff, he was a big time runner. And we saw it correlate to hunting, actually. We saw where the strength supplement helped in hunting. He did primarily, but then I started seeing that, the benefit of that when I stepped into the elk woods, because I was more equipped to put a pack on and carry it. And that was a byproduct of running and not spending as much time out there and spending more time at home. So a little bit more strength and a little bit less time. And then anytime you're traveling, that sort of stuff, just embrace it and go for a run, go see the sights, go hit a trail. That's an awesome thing to get to do. And you're on the road anyway.
Yeah. So, better than sitting in a hotel room.
Absolutely. Even a hotel gym. It's like, go outside.
Now, what about training for elevation? I mean, that, like in my case, like my next race, that 30K we're talking about, that's like 5,700 feet of elevation gain or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's going to be it sounds like a beast to me, at least. And we're basically going to the top of the Teton range and then back down. But I live in Michigan, and there's not a whole lot of hills here comparable to that. So what are some of the things folks could do to train for elevation, whether it be a trail race that they signed up for, they're going to travel across the country to go do, or, training for an elk hunt they've got coming up and they want to run and they want to do some stuff that's going to help them prepare for that too.
Yep. This will go back to the amount of oxygen that your muscles can take in. So your muscles, that's your VO2 max, and the volume of oxygen that you are able to get to your lungs ultimately. And the better that you can equip yourself to have a high VO2 max, the better you're going to do at elevation. And that goes back to the conversational pace running. That low and slow style of running is really a big benefit when it comes to helping increase your VO2 max. And there's other things that you can do in the running space there's studies out there too of certain distances like track work and that sort of thing that will help increase your VO2 max. But when it comes to a mountain trail race with a whole bunch of that vertical climb and descent that you're going to go through, the benefit to you of having really strong quads, glutes, hamstrings, core that's unparalleled. So your ability to tax your quads, but you can tax your quads like right now. If you were to do 10 lunge jumps, one each side, your quads will be on fire doing 10 lunge jumps. And even for me, I was like, and I live out here and I can go up a steep trail whenever, but your quads take a beating, especially on the descent. Yeah. So having strong legs all around, and I will say quad dominant because that's the downhill, that's your deceleration. But you don't want to forget your glutes and your hamstrings as well. And that's where that strength element comes into place. So, box step ups, that sort of stuff, lunge jumps, air squats. We do a bunch of wall sits in a lot of our programs too. No. And so like, well, that burned your quads, but you sustain that. And so those are the sort of things that you can take in to then that trail race and say, hey, yes, my legs are going to hurt, but at least I've done this work ahead of time. So I've prepped them. I've kind of been experiencing that, painful quad burn, glute burn, all of that stuff ahead of time. So that when I'm in the race, I'm taking in more of the scenery and the race itself, as opposed to saying I'm devastated right now. Yeah.
Yeah. My 3 days a week, my 4-year-old doesn't have preschool in the morning. So he's just with me. And so a couple different times I've been home with him in the morning, and I'm going to do my foundations strength workout, and I have to do those damn wall sits. And I'll be in the living room back against the wall, and I'm just like, and I'm like kind of cussing silently inside my head. He'll walk up. He's like, "What's the matter, Dad? Why are you so mad right now?" I'm making faces. And I'm
That's amazing.
like, you try doing this, Colt. You'll
Yeah.
see.
He's gonna
Uh,
come stand on your quads the next
right,
time.
right. Yeah. How's this, Dad? It's funny though.
Oh
You
gosh.
talked about how like the kids see you and kind of want to do it too. So they've seen me. They've come to my races and stuff like that, and they've been like interested. And they cheer me on and all that kind of stuff. And I found some little film on YouTube about someone doing a 100-mile race, and they watched it. And now whenever they see me put on my shoes, they're like, "Can we go on a 100-mile race too?" They think I'm going out for a
Amazing.
100-mile race every time I go out running. And so
Yes.
sometimes they want to go and do a 100-mile race. And so what they do is they put on my watch and they put on their like hiking shoes or basketball shoes, and they'll run laps around our living room.
Yeah.
And every lap they'll say, "Daddy, look at the watch. Have I gone 100 miles yet? How far have I gone?" And so far, my 6-year-old did 2 miles in laps around the living room once. So he just kept
Oh my
going and going
gosh.
and going. So it was
It's
pretty funny.
That's amazing. Like
Yeah,
just to see your kids gravitate towards something like that because of what you modeled,
yeah,
it's amazing. Like that's a job well done. And so cool that they laugh about 100 miles because they have no context,
no,
but you're
no
like,
idea.
100 miles? But in their
But
mind, I'm like, it's a big deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're crushing it.
So
Um,
cool.
so you talked about training specifically for like some of those things like coming down off the hill. The descent is going to be really impacting your quads and stuff. What about like actual, I don't know if technique's the right word, but like when I'm running this first really big mountain run this coming
Mhm.
year, this summer, you know, walking all the hills, what degree hill should I walk? When should I run? When should I walk? I mean, as far as like tactics on the trail, I've read stuff about like when you're descending, there's some people that just seem to like do big strides and just like fly down the hill. And then there's other people who do like short, fast steps running down the hill. Do you have any thoughts on like actual technique or approach to actually being there on the trail and running in a way that's going to be effective?
There's a few things when it comes to mountain running, and that you're coming out of the Midwest more. You have rocky, rooty trails. Oftentimes, it's fast footwork that's going to be the benefit that you come to that race with because you have those technical trails. Maybe they're muddy. That sort of
Yep.
technical piece is really important. So that's your ankles, that's your knees, your calves as well. So when it comes to technique, it's just your running form. Like you're gonna have running form on a flat road, but then it's gonna all break down, and you're gonna be hiking. Honestly, there are people out there. I'll throw I'll throw Chester Floyd out there because you know
Yeah.
Chester,
Yeah.
and he's an absolute phenom when it comes to running.
Really?
Like there's a few people out here that I know can run up these really steep faces. Chester is one of those individuals.
Wow.
He can like literally run, but it's the same speed at which maybe a little faster than me, but same speed at which a lot of people are hiking. So you have a longer stride. You can lean into that stride and you can hike because each step you're going to be going a lot further than if you were to pitter patter
Yeah.
and run along. But Chester is one of those individuals. He could pitter patter and just run all the way to the top of things, and then he can just descend. But he has a shorter stride as well. Also, he's an incredible athlete too. So I've never seen somebody climb and descend, especially descend as fast as he does. But for you with a larger stride, just lean into that and do that hike. And you get that from hunting. A lot of people will use like running style trekking poles in those races.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing too to keep your body upright. So then you're opening up your lungs more. And you can use those poles to kind of help fight the fatigue. And us as hunters, like we use them a lot, but in the trail running world, they're getting more and more popular. Sometimes some of those races don't allow them if there's a whole bunch of people that they don't allow the poles, but you could look into that and see if that's something. But like leaning into that and putting your hands on your quads when you're in that race and pushing off your quads just is like, my arms are helping me a little bit. But your stride, your stride alone will be a big benefit to you in that race when you go to the climbing portion. The descent, like it's hard not to be on your heels when you descend, but oftentimes that's just the lack of quad strength as well. So you kind of want to, I oftentimes think of it like skiing when you're going downhill. Just have a little bit of flow when you're running downhill. Enjoy it. Like there's cool little trails and rocks, and try to look at where your feet are going, and have that fast footwork. You'll be fatigued, all of that, but enjoy it and let your arms, float out on your side as balance goes, because you probably take a stumble here and there, and it's rocky and nasty. It's going to be up high, so you're going to want to have good balance, and that kind of goes back to then that strength portion as well. It's like, yeah, you're everything's really stable, and that'll help you on the descent as well.
It's funny when you talk about descent. I found myself when I'm going down. Now these aren't as big a hills as you guys have out there, but when I'm going down the bigger hills here, as I've been training, I find myself thinking about those Hoka commercials, like where they're like "fly, human, fly." So I'm like running down the hill, and in my head, I'm just saying "fly, human, fly," and it kind of like just like enjoying it, just like kind of like I'm riding a bike down a mountain, kind of, and just like letting momentum while trying to have good form going down and not tripping on something, but at the same time, like kind of having fun with like that extra little something when you're going down.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think of skiing or mountain biking and how flowy the trails are, and then when you have get a good pair of cushioned shoes and enjoy that cushion. Like it's there for a reason, and if it lets you flow a little bit more and lets you cruise along, I think would be funny if you were to like watch a video of a bunch of people coming downhill at a race. Like we all think we're going really fast and we're out of control, but it's actually quite slow.
Probably right. Okay, so you think I could do a 50K next year? Let's hypothetically say if I could do a 30K, 55 vert. There's a 50K in the same area that would be like a little over 6 vert or something, and then it'd be 50K. As far as training wise, bumping up from training for a 30 up to a 50, something like that. Anything off the top of your head that you would change dramatically with that jump, or is it kind of the same thing but a little bit longer?
Yeah, you won't have to run as fast training for the 50K. So you dial back the speed at which you're training just a little bit. You're going to be doing more vertical, so you're going to be climbing more and descending more. So that's where you're going to want to make sure and double down on the strength portion of that. And yes, it's a little bit more time on your feet, but it's not that much more time on your feet from a 30 to 50. But in my experience, you're not running as fast in a 50K. You got to pace it out. So you can enjoy that as part of the training and do a lot of that zone 2, which then should pay off in your hunts. That's where you probably notice it too.
Yeah. So another piece of all this that I've started thinking about is once you start getting that distance or even further, and I think this ties into folks who are going to be doing big elk hunts or mountain hunts as well. It's like thinking about nutrition. How do you fuel yourself so you can maintain your, pace or whatever you're trying to do for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours? Walk me through like what you're thinking about when making decisions on how you're going to fuel yourself on a long run like this. There's 1,000 different things out there. I've come to find out as I've been researching and trying things out myself. But what's the Weston Paul approach to fuel during a long distance run?
I love snacks, and trail running and races in particular have so many snacks. That's a carrot out in front of me that I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to what snacks they have. Like they'll set up all the tables at the aid stations, and you have your pick of gummy bears and M&Ms and potato chips and all this stuff. It's kind of junk food, honestly, at a lot of trail races. But your body when you're in a race, your body is using everything that you can throw at it because you're burning so many calories at such a fast rate. So you can snack on a lot of that stuff. However, the thing that you don't hear about a lot is the stomach issues that you get when you throw a bunch of junk,
Mm-hmm.
uh, down your throat in a race, and then stuff comes back to bite you. So the further the distance, the race, the more you're going to experience that. So maybe not in a 30K or a shorter distance race are you going to experience the GI issues, but you definitely will experience those should you do it incorrectly in a longer race. And nutrition, it's more and more popular to kind of dive into nutrition. Us as hunters, we have wild game and so much of it, and we're on that path. Like, hey, we're harvesting this, we're putting
Yeah.
good things in our body, and we're looking forward to having those meals. In a race, you can always bring your own snacks, but you want a lot of carbohydrates. There's people too, like there's all kinds of diets out there. There's people that follow this, that, and everything. And I pretty much tried everything as well because I get curious and I'm like, oh, I'll see if that works and if that works. But a well-rounded diet in and day out is so important because you're getting everything that you need. And in a race, it's important to think of it as the same. Like, I want to be well-rounded in what I'm doing. And so you bring your snacks along, you'll have a lot of carbohydrates, you'll have a lot of sugars, and then you're going to want the proteins and fats as well, because your proteins and fats, those are your slow burn. Those are the ones that give you like that endurance over the long run, that longevity during a race. Like, your proteins and fats are really important. You can't just survive on carbs alone, and you can't survive on sugars alone. Sugars in particular are the ones that will blow your stomach up. So it's like a layering system of snacks when you're in a race. And you can start out with a good breakfast or a good dinner the night before. People carb load. I think that's just a common running thing, is like to carb load. But actually, if you haven't been consuming carbs to that extent, it's not a good idea to carb load. Like, if you've been running and you're watching your health and you're watching what you eat, you're probably not consuming that many carbs. And so to carb load the night before is actually a bad idea. And well, one of my buddies, Nick, he had like spicy elk sausage and made pasta, and I was still like, we still tease him about that because I was like, there's no way I'm going to eat that the night before a race.
He
Sure
paid
thing,
for
he
it, huh?
did. He suffered, but if you think about it, with the blend of those, there's so many great resources out there now, or there's so many great nutrition supplements, that sort of thing, that you can get for running in particular. I gravitate towards more of the natural ones with the fewest ingredients in them. And so they make awesome gels now. They're called Spring Energy. They're so good. I actually look forward to consuming those, and any of them that I have left over, they go right in my hunting pack, and I'll use them. Like, they're actually that good. And so those are, like rice is the carbohydrate component, and then natural sugars from fruit and that sort of stuff. You can still have your snacks. A long time ago, I ran a race, and there's an older gentleman in front of me, and he didn't have like the pack and all the stuff that a lot of us racers had. And so I was naturally curious, and I kind of caught up to him, and he had a little handheld water bottle, and I was like, "What do you do for nutrition?" And he's like, "Well, I got like trail mix in my pocket." And I was like, "Do you think about trail mix? It is actually that blend. That's why
Yeah.
trail mix exists. It's because it's that blend." And so I'm like, I'll copy that. So I love trail mix. Like, it's a good go-to. It has a blend of a little bit of everything. You got the protein from the nuts and stuff that's in there,
Yeah.
and the fats from those. So those are the slow burn. Your body will tap into those. But the big thing is that you just want to stay on a cadence. So oftentimes people will set a watch or set your phone to go every 45 minutes to an hour to remind yourself to eat and drink. And because you won't want to. Like, if you feel really good in a race, you're like, I'm not hungry. And the longer the race, the more you want to put that aside and say, I know my mind says that I'm not hungry right now, but actually I do need to fuel. And so making sure that you get that on a routine basis is what allows you to finish well in a lot of those races. I I had one race a number of years ago where I was just like stumbling. I was just stumbling along my nutrition. I was dehydrated, and I they were making bacon at this aid station, and I just remember having a couple slices of bacon, and it took me about 40 minutes or so, and that stuff kicked in, and I came back to life, and I was like, that's the slow burn, fat and protein that you get from bacon, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad I got that, and I came back to life and finished the race, and not because it was just bacon that made me finish, but I felt that impact that it had on my body at that time.
Well, I've done like so much reading now about, you know, all this kind of stuff. And there's so many examples and stories I've heard where people will have that kind of thing happen, where something they ate or drank at an aid station or something they remember they had in their pack all of a sudden like brings them back to life. Like they're totally bonking and then they had a second set of wheels. And
Yeah.
you sometimes, at least I sometimes would have thought that's like overblown, but it seems like it's not. And speaking of bacon, this last race, I told myself I had no time goal. It was like, hey, I just want to like, this was my first like relatively hilly, 100% like single track trail run race. I was like, I just want to finish this training run. Let's just like do good, natural pace and just stop at the aid station, see what's there, have some fun with it. Because the last race I did, I was like trying to add a time goal. And so I was like, I'm not stopping. I'm just burning right through. So this time around, I was going to enjoy it a little bit. But as soon as I started going, and then as soon as I started like passing a lot of people, I got to a point like a couple miles in where I was like, all of a sudden I felt like very competitive. I was like, I wonder if I could like, maybe I'm better at this than I think. Like I blew past all these people and all of a sudden I was like, I need to try to like, I need to go for it. Like I want to see where I can actually rank on this thing. And so I ended up not stopping at any aid stations because like my competitive juices got it flowing and I actually wanted to, to see what my time could be. I did not win the thing, nor win my category.
It's good to push. It's good to try.
And I have felt like every time I've done a race, it's like a different, like adrenaline burst. Like there's just something different that gets you to a different level, which is kind of fun. And I did finish top 10 for my age bracket, which is fun.
There you go.
So that was something. But yeah, I'm telling myself for this next race that I'm going to, again, not be like going crazy fast. I'm gonna stop at the aid stations and like enjoy a cookie or something ridiculous. But we'll see what happens on the day of. I might end up getting crazy again.
I like those are the things that races do bring about, and that competitive nature. That's an amazing thing to tap into and to push yourself. We can push ourselves in other areas, but this is a race. It's one day, and like there's that little glimmer of hope. And you're like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not just go for it? The further the distance, the longer it takes to recover from pushing because you'll end up hitting those walls or bonking or cramping up or like all that sort of stuff that you experience. But even that, gosh, you just walk right out of it. You'll literally walk right out of it. And it's amazing what the human body is capable of when it comes down to it, because we're made to survive and we're made to be able to push when we need to push, which is a cool thing to get to tap into that we don't do that often. I was like, sometimes we might say that in a hunting scenario. Yeah, we pushed a little bit or but say back to whitetail hunting, you're not pushing yourself to get to the stand necessarily. Certainly you're like, I'm going to get there at this time and I'm going to crawl up in there. But you are going to push yourself to make that sit or, change the game plan when you need to. So you do tap into that same sort of mental side. Back to the hunting thing. I was like, we are certainly made to do this and we are certainly made to move. And it's just really fun to have it in a race scenario.
Yeah. It's there's so many things that happen in that scenario that help. Like in this last one, I found someone who was at my pace but a little above it. And like when I got to like the last like quarter of the race, and I was just like behind him the whole way, but I could feel like him kind of pulling away a little bit. So I could tell he was a little bit faster than I was. And I decided I'm not going to let him lose me. I'm going to stay on his tail. And so like just having that, like someone to like stick with, that he pulled me through the last quarter faster than I would have otherwise. And I just kind of said like, hey, you're not losing this guy. And I kind of pressed that mental switch and I shifted gears and it was great. And I'm glad I did it. But if I was just doing a training run, it'd be a lot harder to do that all on your own. Or the last one I did, when I got to the last like 2 miles or whatever, kind of a similar situation. There was a guy who I kind of latched onto, and same thing. I could tell like naturally he was faster than me. His natural pace was faster than I wanted to go. But I decided I'm going to beat this guy. So it became a one-on-one race, and he didn't know it.
Yep.
But I knew I was in a one-on-one race with him. And like the final half mile or whatever, I had to like put the burners on and ran as fast as I ran like all year probably to beat that one guy. But I did, and it felt really good.
So cool.
And those little things don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but they make for like that additional something, that little extra challenge that pushes you a little further, takes you to a level maybe you didn't know you could get to. And all of that stuff, I actually think about this when I'm training and I'm going up a hard hill or I'm tired or whatever. I will think about November when it's 2 degrees out and freezing cold and you've been in the tree stand for 12 hours and you're miserable and you're tired and you want to pull the plug. Are you going to pull the plug? Or are you going to push through this? Or when you're hunting elk and there's a bull at the top of this mountain 2,500 feet above you and you've got to bomb up that thing, are you going to do it? Like in these moments when I'm tired, when I want to be done, that's like the stuff that I play in my head to make sure like, no, like you're going to push through it and this is how you do it. And we're practicing for those moments. Even though I might be running on a flat piece of pavement, I'm training my brain to be able to push through those walls, right? I think that's what a lot of this does for us.
It's so spot on when it comes down to it. That's that mental fortitude piece. And to tap into that, that's where the power comes, honestly. And we get a little glimmer of that in hunting season. And we know the areas that we could improve on, certainly. I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm like, I know that I could push a little bit further, push a little bit harder. I know I could be patient when I need to be patient and not walk all day. But yeah, back to the whitetail hunter that's out there. I'm like, I know. I'm like, you got it. You got what it takes. It's between the ears, and tap into it. Just maybe running is the way you tap into it. Maybe there's some other fitness regimen that you get into that helps you tap into that, but it's a way that you can access that on a repeated basis. You can do it and you can create that habit and you can tap into it. And it's so awesome to be able to switch over to, that difficult hunt, what you're looking forward to, all of that, and play all those scenarios in your mind. And then the race is over. You're like, check, I did that. I've got some confidence out of it. I've got some of these cool stories and I've tapped into this area of my life that I wouldn't have otherwise, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. All right. I've taken a lot of your time this afternoon. It's Friday. You probably got good things to get off to do. So I don't want to use up too much of this precious resource of ours. But is there any final thing that we haven't talked about yet, or something that, just let's selfishly keep me in mind, and let's say that next year I want to do that 50K or a 50 mile or something. I'm going to take another big jump next year. What's one more thing I should be keeping in mind over this next 12 months as I do my first big mountain run and then start training for the next bigger thing? Any other advice, any other category of thing we haven't talked about yet that I need to be thinking about as kind of as a send-off parting set of words?
I'm gonna encourage you to go for it. It's like if people say send it, go for it, because and it's funny. I wasn't a runner, right? I had asthma, I did all that stuff, and I've still like I really love to run. Do I do it all the time? No, I've had periods of time where I'm super obsessive about it, and it kind of can take over, certainly. But those are good times in life to have had. But it is something that is so powerful, and it manifests itself in other ways in life. But oftentimes when people, you've probably heard it already. Oh, you did that race? I could never do that.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh, I couldn't run that far. And in my heart of hearts, I'm like, yeah, you can. Anybody can do it. Honestly, like you might have some sort of ailments that you should not run, and those, but you are already pushing yourself if you're overcoming those sort of ailments anyway.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it's an awesome, simple way to go and just tap into that mental side, that mental fortitude, the mental toughness that you do have, because we have it in common because we're hunters and we're competitive, all of that with ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing. So I would just encourage you to go for it. I'm like, sign up for it. Sign up for the 50K. Heck, like put a 100-miler out there on the docket and work towards it. I've been putting in for 4 years to this 100-miler and I haven't gotten in every year. And it's always a kind of a relief when I don't get in. And next year I'll get in. And I'm like, I'll look forward to that. It's a good carrot to have out there. And if you want to do a 100-miler, I'll come pace you. We just pick it and I'll meet you. So
I hope you're not
I'd love
saying
to.
that flippantly, because I might bite.
I'm
I might do it.
I offer that. That is my offer stands. I will. I was like, I love to see people tap into that, and that's one of the things that I've learned to love about the trail running community and these races that are out there. Yeah, they're kind of silly in the big scheme of things. Yes, but for us as humans, we're made to move, we're made to travel, and go and do it. Like you'll learn a whole bunch about yourself, and you'll be a better hunter because
Yeah.
of it. I guarantee you'll be a better hunter because of it. But more so than being a better hunter, it's like, hey, just like tap into these things and then handle the rest of the stuff that life throws at you with grace and patience and all of that. And running just kind of teaches you that. It just
Yeah.
breaks you down. Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like a tremendous training tool for so much of what life throws at you.
Yeah. Big time. Big time.
Have you done the rut?
Yeah. I have I
Is that
I have
pretty
a rut
gnarly?
tattoo. I have a rut tattoo on my arm.
Yeah, they give that
I've
at
done,
the finish line, right?
yeah, I'm a rut fan, certainly, but they moved it last year. They moved it a little bit far further into archery season, and
Oh yeah.
I was like, I can't go. I really want to go and hunt. It's always the opening weekend, or it had typically always been the opening weekend, but it's spectacular. It's one of the coolest events that I've ever experienced. Events in all categories that I've ever experienced. It's a unique culture. They started off with a bugle, so that gives me
Yeah.
goosebumps when I think about the bugle
So
that kicks it
cool.
off, and it's just they've nailed it. And I asked Mike Wolf, oh, I don't know, when he did the signups in January, they do a locals only sign up night. And I was like, did you ever envision it getting this big? And he's like, no, never thought it would. Actually, it was just kind of a local race. That's the way it started out. And they drew a bunch of big names, but gosh, I'd encourage anybody to sign up for that. It is one of the coolest races that's out there. It's different. It's not a hometown race. But it's big, and there's just a positive energy that's there that's unmatched, and you get to just see the coolest country. There's elk all over that ski hill. There's elk all over it.
Wow.
Like, you won't see them because everyone's running through, but there's elk all over it. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, I've heard that is technically more of like I think they call it like a sky run. Is that right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just like that style, like ridge line, like really, really up there, crazy route, it seems like.
It's very rugged. The scree and everything that you experience in that race is everything that you would if you were on a sheep hunt. I'm sure I've never been on a sheep hunt, but I'm sure that's similar. Certainly, it's like all that just gnarly rock, ankle biters. I say ankle biters
Yeah, I
because I
bet.
always inevitably step on one and it just comes up and snaps the side of my ankle, and I just get a little angry at that rock.
Uh-huh.
Just funny.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet. That one's on my list for someday.
That's a
The
good one.
Bridger Ridge Run is on the list for someday. The Teton 50K I was telling you about, that's on the list.
Hmm.
My buddy Yanni's doing the Bighorn this summer. That's on my list for
Oh,
someday.
it's so
Um,
good.
the
Yeah,
Bighorn.
that whole community.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I was like, you get to go experience these, and people come out and they support it, and that the Bighorn and Sheridan and all of that country down there. It's like everyone descends on that race to cheer people on. It's insane,
That's cool.
and that's like the heart of that's really good elk country. There'll be bulls will no joke. Bulls will bugle in June when that race goes on. I've been there. I've heard them. it's like, I'm just like, what in the world? I heard that they did that, but never actually experienced it. And sure thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I got to ask you one last question. I'll get you out of
Okay.
here. For folks that want to try some of the strength training stuff we talked about, can you give
Yeah.
folks a recommendation? Where can they find stuff with Mountain Tough? How can they get involved? Maybe what would be like a first, program to consider if they're getting into the kind of stuff I'm getting into and they want to
Yeah.
add that base of strength. How would you recommend they do that?
Yeah, we'd love to encourage anybody to go and check out Mountain Tough. Even for your audience, Mark, and like extending that to them, we could do a 30-day trial on Mountain Tough. So you can just check it out. You can just poke around in there because everyone's at a different place and we don't want to be pushy ever, but we want to meet people where they're at and help get them on a path. Like I said, we don't have a running program, but we do have the strength piece covered and we do have the cardio piece covered. But we could do a 30-day trial and say use code WIRED
Sweet.
and go and check it out. It won't cost you anything. Just go ahead and check it out and then cancel it if you don't like it. And if you keep doing it, awesome. We just want to encourage you. So I'll shoot that over, email over to you with the details about that. But
Great.
like, gosh, we'd love people to get in there and just see. And hopefully it's a stepping stone to sign up for a trail race.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. And you don't need Mountain Tough to sign up for a trail race or start running. Go just head out your door. And if you're not feeling like running, just go and walk for 15 minutes and then just enjoy the beauty that's all around and then get up 2 mornings from now and do it again. And I'm certain people can tap into that anytime they want to. It's just a matter of right time, right place.
Yeah, man. Amen to that. I couldn't say any better. And just thank you. Thanks for
You bet,
sharing
man.
all this. Thanks for the offer there for listeners to get in there and give this stuff a try. Man, I've just been enjoying this so much and seeing the benefits and excited how it's going to help me this fall and future years. And man, it's pretty fun to geek out about this stuff too. So I'm getting in, and I can just see myself spiraling further and further. It's getting its claws into me.
Oh, it's awesome. I'm like, I can flash back too. Cause I was like, my boys are, like they're little and they were seeing that. And it's a big deal. I can tell you that it's a big deal to go and do it. And like I said, I caution people not to let it take over their lives, but I was conscious of that. And I'm like, you know what? It's taking a little bit more time from home. And I do want to be there, and then flag football and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm okay not running for as long as I thought, and I'll still finish a race. And I'm good with that. But having those pieces out there, and shoot, your kids running 100-milers in the house. That's one of the best things I've ever heard. I love it.
It's pretty darn funny. They're good kids. Good kids.
That's so cool. Good job for sure. And yeah, I'll continue to encourage you on this path. And I can. That's one of the things about running too. I was like, how I end up striking up a conversation and learning people's stories and getting to tell all these cool stories. And you get to do that in the mountains. And I don't know, any trail, anywhere. I'm like, it's just one of the byproducts. Yeah. So I appreciate the time here. We could have been running this whole time.
I know.
So
maybe next time, when I'm up in Bozeman next time, I'll be there this summer a good bit. Maybe I'll reach out and we can go for a run.
Let's do it. That would be amazing. Get to chat more and go hit a trail for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Weston.
Cool. You bet. Thank you.
All right. And that is going to do it for our chat today. Thank you again for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. I hope that if you're not consistently running, you might think about adding this to your routine, doing a little bit more, getting outside and just moving a little bit more. I really do think this is going to be something that can help you become a better deer hunter, no matter where you hunt, no matter how you hunt. Getting a little bit more active out there is going to help. So hopefully this helped kind of give you some inspiration to do that and maybe some tools to take it to the next level. If this is something that you're already doing, but you want to kind of expand the challenge or find new ways to take it to that next level, I think there's been some ideas here for you too. I want to reiterate, what Weston mentioned. They're offering a 30-day free trial for anyone listening to this. If you want to sign up and try that body weight strength routine that I've been using, you can go to the Mountain Tuff website and use promo code WIRED. That's WIRED. Or there's also a direct link in the description for this podcast. In your podcast app, just look in the notes there. You'll see a link. Click that, and that will take you to a sign-up page as well. So free 30-day trial. Check it out. It's good stuff. I've been running it myself this spring and enjoying it, and definitely appreciate Weston offering that to all of us as well. So with that all said, appreciate you. Thanks for being here. Until next time, stay wired to hunt.